But that's the magical part, I think, of your work, to make a combination of this.
Well, I can give it to my wife.
Make it sexy, you know?
Yeah. I had one good decision in life was that I got married to my wife. That was the one good I made.
Okay, but what inspired the certain design details? Let's start with maybe with the lacquered canvas. Did you see it somewhere else?
With the lacquer, we looked at different things. We looked at the white lacquer for the teas. We thought it would show the tea, the pureness of the teas.
I definitely think that I would wear this on a date just to get a glass of wine or something like that. Especially on a rainy spring evening, something like that. What kind of date would you wear it on? So hello to all ELLE readers and viewers in Lithuania and all around the world, I hope. My name is Deimantė Bulbenkaitė. I'm a journalist at ELLE magazine. And today, on behalf of Crème, we have some very special guests on the podcast episode. And I'm very, very happy to welcome the founder of two cult perfumery brands of Memo Paris and Floraïku. It's Johnu Molloy. Hello, John.
Hello, how are you? I'm delighted to be here.
I'm very, very happy to be with you here as well, but it's not my only person that I'm going to talk to, because we also have two very lovely girls, both ambassadors of Crème, both content creators and niche perfumery enthusiasts. So hi, Simona Burbaitė.
Hi.
And hello to Almantė Pociūtė.
Hi.
So, thank you, first of all, to everyone for coming here. And as we were talking backstage before the interview, we were having a conversation about how to pronounce the name of the brand Floraïku, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about the name and what is the correct pronunciation?
Well, the name comes from two different words put together. Flora, being flowers, and haiku, being the poem of three different verses. So it's a composed name of Floraïku. So Floraïku, as in flora plus haikus, Floraïku. And Floraïku Paris, because it's French perfumery.
Okay, but I know personally that you are from Ireland, and now you're mainly probably based in Geneva and in Paris, but could you tell me a little bit more, how did perfumery come into your life? And what is probably the first memory of scent that you have?
Well, perfumery came into my life from a very young age because I grew up in the countryside. Surrounded by greenery, gardens, animals, horses, everything. So I think subconsciously I was very aware. And then I spent big part of my life working in fashion, where I was introduced to a lot of different innovations, be it from clothing and perfumery. So that's how it kind of all started, my love for fashion and fragrance from there. And I think probably one of my earliest memories of a memo, we could say, an earliest memory is probably from fresh cut green grass in the springtime, when you get that smell driving through the countryside, and it evokes the beginning of spring, growth, nature, and aliveness.
Mm-hmm. Is it something like this?
I think anywhere you see something green and very productive, that's beautiful with colors, I think it always gives you that sort of vibrancy. I think green brings out that energy and vibrancy. It's a color of energy and youthfulness.
Mm-hmm. And since we know that you have founded two cult perfumery brands, I just have to ask you, what does your usual day look like? And do you also have to divide your time into for both brands, for Floraïku and for Memo Paris?
I think there's no real active division. There's no real conscious effort to divide anything like that. I think things happen in a way. Also, I think that we've built brands, but brands like Memo Paris and Floraïku Paris that are not about us only, they're brands. So I think it invites a great team of people to work behind the brand and build the brand, because those brands have their vision of the world, which encompasses sort of a very rich creative talent to feel part of that and move forward. I think that's something that's very rich. So for me, on a day-to-day basis, I've got a great team. We work well together. We ping-pong ideas about Memo Paris, and then there'll be another meeting about Floraïku, but it's not broken into half a day. It's like having different children. You don't say you're going to spend 2 hours with your first child, and then 2 hours with your second child, and then 2 hours with your wife. It doesn't work like that. It just feels natural.
Of course. And when you think about Floraïku, of course, the first things that I imagine it's all about Japanese calligraphy, flowing haiku poetry. It's also blooming spring and beautiful flowers and beautiful trees, and of course incense and spices, and so many different aspects of Japanese culture. So could you tell us a little bit more about how did you start the brand at first?
Well, Floraïku, at the beginning, we didn't go out to invent a new brand or create a new brand. We were actually making a small collection about Japan and about Asia for the Memo brand. And then ideas sort of jumped and went bigger and bigger and bigger, and suddenly it became too big to be a capsule collection, and it became its own collection. And my wife is a French poet, Clara, and she at the time was working on haikus. And I'd had the wonderful opportunity in life to have worked for a Japanese fashion brand and run that brand for 5 years in Paris. So I'd spent so much time going backwards and forwards to Japan. My wife was studying haikus and the origin of haikus and how they were so important. And she saw the similarity between spending a year writing 3 verses for a haiku and spending a year making a perfume with your head note, your mid note, and your base note. So she was able to bring those two creative parts together. And that's how it all kind of happened. It really was, there was nothing programmed. I think you always write the book after the success and never beforehand, but we just wanted to make a capsule collection for Memo Paris. And it developed into a brand. And it was something that gave us so much energy and enthusiasm to think about how that could develop. And that's how it started.
Mm-hmm. And now I have a question for everyone. When you imagine Japan, it doesn't matter whether you've been there or not, what kind of scent do you imagine? What's the first thing that pops into your mind? Simona, maybe let's start with you.
I don't know, somehow cherries, like because of Sakura, I guess. So this is the first thing that comes into my mind. And the fresh and green something also. Like you said, John, the fresh, I don't know, cut grass or something.
For me personally, I think about tea and something like, I don't know, maybe fresh cotton, something like very pure. So water, yeah. So something very like natural, I would say, yeah.
For me, it's probably incense, actually, because I think of all the sacred spaces, all the small temples, maybe far into the mountains or far into the woods. So I'm thinking definitely about incense. And what's it for you, John?
For me, it's always been about the detail that the Japanese put into everything they do. So if they were at cherry blossom when they do it, how do they manage to get all those cherry trees in all the parks to come out all at the same time to create that wonderful, amazing period where everyone changes their mood, changes how they dress. So when they do something, it seems to be so precision, timed, beautifully done with so much thought and ritual behind it. The same thing with incense. Yeah. When they do an incense ceremony, when they do a flower ceremony, the thought of ikebana, the thought that goes into these things. So that's what's been an amazing, how should you say, source of inspiration and detail and thought and history and culture. And, you know, we're not making a Japanese brand. We make French perfumery. But it's like if we're this French perfume brand, haute perfume brand, and we are inspired from the service and the details of Japan. And that's what we bring to the table, is something which is East meets the West. But we're a French perfumer house that just is full of admiration for Japan.
And when we probably think about Japanese culture and we think about the tributes to Japanese culture, we think about tea, spices, and incense. And this is probably the background for most of your creations, I would say. This is like the main idea of most of your creations. And today we often speak about how can we talk about culture, how can we approach culture without trying to appropriate it, and how we can be very respectful of the culture itself. So I have a question. Would you say that Floraïku is like a poetic interpretation of the culture of Japan, or is it more like a try to document it?
I would say that, and the way that Clara and I look at Floraïku is that Floraïku is a French perfume brand. And my wife, being a poet, writes the haiku, which is written by her, you know, a Parisian person. She writes the haiku as the inspiration, as a starting point for the perfumery. So if the creative inspiration comes from the written word, and that evokes the emotion, and that's the brief at the beginning. And the other things come from there. There always has to be a starting point with every creative process. So I think if the creator is a Parisian who writes a haiku and it's written in English, it's a mix, and then that starts to see how that can further flow out and what interpretation that gets. And then we just try to bring in elements that we love into the service of launching that fragrance or speaking about that fragrance. But I think it very much is and we're aware that Floraïku Paris is a French brand that has an appreciation for the East, but it really remains a French perfume brand. We're not trying to be anything we're not.
Okay. I have a question. How many times you've been in Japan, for example?
That's a good question. I don't know how many times I've been. I can't remember. I have to go back. But when I was working for this fashion brand, I was going up to 3 times a year. And I've been there, I don't know, maybe 10 times since then. So maybe I've been there, 20, 25, 30 times in my life, visiting different parts of Japan. But I wouldn't say it's a physical presence. I would say it's also an appreciation for film, for manga, for music, there's a lot of things, and especially Japanese fashion. I'm a huge fan of indigo, Japanese denim, and the interpretations of that, the detail. And so I think there's a lot more to the interpretation of Japanese and how you can see it with a poetic license, as you said earlier on, than meets the eye.
Okay, and when we, for example, think about some of the first hits of Floraïku, one of the first scents I want to talk about is One Umbrella for Two. It's a very iconic scent, and I know that in Lithuania it's also selling very well, and you have lots of fans here. And I always wondered, what story does the scent tell us? And how did you start writing those stories? You told us that your wife writes the haikus, but how did you come up with the stories that inspire the fragrances, and especially this one?
Well, I've only been married for 21 years, so I still don't know how my wife does things. So maybe one day when I have a lot more experience of marriage life, I will know how my wife works.
Let's talk in 20 years.
Exactly. Okay. I'll meet you here.
Good.
Or let's bring your wife.
Well, then, no, I will never if I bring my wife, then you won't want to see me.
Okay.
Because you'll be a lot more impressed by having my wife talking about the brand than you ever will have. So One Umbrella for Two, how Clara started was like the haiku about that is, our eyes raised to the sky, no rain, one umbrella for two. So our eyes raised to the sky, there's no rain, one umbrella for two. So, and she's fundamentally a very romantic person. So to have that idea of romanticism and just to put that as a starting point for any nose to go and create a perfume, having an umbrella for two with no rain, looking at the sky, it's a wonderful, wonderful, simple, but very strong and poignant feeling to start in a perfume. And then to work with something that was starting off with some genmatcha tea, having that, there's some blackcurrant, fitting
Maybe
it in.
We can try?
Why not? It's great.
Yeah, but tell us a bit more about the composition, because, you know, as it was one of the first perfumes that your brand did, it's very interesting that it maybe set the tone for the future creations, no?
I think so. I think that's a very strong point. I think it was started with the tea in the tea collection and the teas and spices. So I think when you're experiencing this perfume, when you first touch it, you've got this sort of sweetness comes to it, and then suddenly you've got this background feeling of the genmatcha tea. You don't know what it is exactly, so it kind of strikes you in a way. And then you've got this comfort feeling, yet it's very romantic at the same time. And it's really telling you a story, and you really want to bring it back and smell it again and again. It becomes quite addictive.
Somehow it's very cozy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
for a rainy day.
With one umbrella.
With one umbrella, but no rain.
Exactly, well done.
Yeah.
So, but that's how it fits in. I think a starting point of anything, I think you've all probably worked in creative processes. You've always got to start from somewhere. And you've got a starting point. And that point has got to be, gives you inspiration and gives you energy to go further. And I think when you have a perfume like this, and even the detail of the perfume cap, you've got the umbrella on that. And I think behind all of the bottles, you have the haiku. so that you can actually say it. So you hear our eyes raised to the sky, no rain, one umbrella for two. The starting point is always there on the fragrance. And I think that's why we hope. How do we work? We don't have any marketing studies. We just hope that if we do something that we love, other people will love it. And that's how we work.
And would you categorize the fragrance as a unisex one? Or do you ever do like the categorization?
No, because I think unisex means no sex, and no sex is very, very sad. So we would like to have it, call it hypersex or something. So, but we always say people said, is this a men's or ladies' fragrance? I go like, yes, of course, tea is for women, coffee is for men. And people look at me, think if I'm crazy. I said, perfume never had a sex. And I think that if, how many fragrances do you wear that people have said are men's fragrances that ultra really good and ultra sexy on girls? It's always been the same way around. I think it's just that people have a notion of what men should wear. And because men at the time didn't wear fragrances. And if you look today, a lot of men in countries say they wear an aftershave. They call a fragrance an aftershave. Yes. I don't wear perfume or fragrance, I wear an aftershave. But it is actually a fragrance. And at the beginning, the marketing had to go and get big, strong sportsmen to say they use deodorants. Just to start deodorant business. There was no deodorant business before for men. They never wore it. So all these things help with time. But I think now young men, and we've seen a huge, huge increase of teenagers, young boys really wanting to express themselves through their fragrance. I think ever since COVID, people have wanted to express their emotions and express their personality. And today, fragrance is more like fashion. It's a fragrance wardrobe. People have many fragrances and they wear them differently. That's
For
really
example, if I leave home without spraying myself with my favorite fragrance, I feel like something is not right, Some element of me is missing, element of my style. So I agree with you totally.
It's part of us, And we change a lot as well. We have different fragrances, different moods, and why not? So I think, that's one umbrella for two. I think it's a great opening fragrance for that in that collection. And I think it starts by giving a feel for where we're coming from, the teas and spices. And yet, how can a tea and spice be something that's very seductive and addictive in a way? It's just the way the fragrance
feel like that.
Does.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the magical part, I think, of your work, to make a combination of this.
Well, I can give it to my wife.
Make it sexy,
Yeah. One good decision in life was that I got married to my wife. That was the one good I made.
Well, you made two more great decisions, because now I want to talk about your noses, the perfumers that you work with. And when I was reading your interviews before this one, I found a really fascinating analogy. And you called your perfumers as samurais. You described them as samurais. And the whole statement was like this: they are fearless, yet defined by patience, devotion, and even a touch of magic. So what does this mean in context of perfumery, and how does your collaborative process look like?
Well, for us, it's always been about having long-term relationships, because in the creative process, you've got to have confidence, and you've got to give someone their space to be creative. And you've got to let someone really go into sort of a deep part. If you criticize the first time you get something back from a creative person, you can often block the whole process. So when we say that they're like samurais, the determination is that the first two perfumers that worked on Floraïku were Elinor Massenet and Sophie Labbe, who are master perfumers, who had known Clara for over 10 years, known how Clara likes making perfume, and had somehow to come back and start a brief from a haiku. So say Clara gives it, this is the brief, this is the haiku, this is the brief from the beginning, this is how I feel it is. And then having to adapt, I say, okay, wow, before we were given 3 pages of brief, now we're given 3 lines of a poem as a starting point. Where do we go from that? And so I think that was why the resilience and starting into it and saying, look, we need you to think differently. We need you to work in a different way for us and this brand. The sign of a haiku is a bolt of lightning. So we need to say, look, we want a fragrance that's going to have over 50% naturals. That's going to hit people straight away when they smell it. It's going to have a distinctive stop you type of notes in each fragrance. And I think that was kind of challenging them to say, look, this is completely different to what you've done before. You have to get out of your mold, try it. And they did it. And they did it with brio. And they accepted the challenge and they wanted to go further. And when you talk back now, they will both say to you that, wow, you really made us think differently about how to approach perfume creation from what we were doing before. And Clara has always been a pioneer with female noses. At the beginning, she only worked with female noses because if you look back in our industry, it was dominated by male noses for so long. And even when we started, a lot of female noses had to co-sign with a man to be considered relevant. So this is showing you 20 years how perfume has evolved. Today, it's very equal, and we work with male, female noses. We don't mind. We've got a bigger team of noses. But at the beginning, back 20 years ago, the industry has really evolved, which is really great. And it's really great for creativity, and it's really great for passionate people.
And your noses ever traveled to Japan?
Yes, very much so. Yeah, Sophie's been there an awful lot. She's worked on an awful lot of teas. Alienor has visited there as well. And we always work with very curious people. I think one of our traits is they have to be curious about other cultures, other people, other ingredients. And noses, by definition, usually are curious because they've got to keep evolving their creativity with palettes that are changing. It's like talking to a makeup artist saying, you've got to do the makeup with less colors. Things are changing all the time. They've got to keep adapting. And I think they're very good at doing that. And it's a continuously changing world. The number of ingredients we're changing because of sustainability, because we want to use ingredients that can be the best of man-made and the best of natural-made, and how they combine together. So everything keeps evolving with the whole world we're living in.
Mm-hmm. And actually, Almantė, just before the interview, commented on the design of the bottles. So I guess it's the perfect time to talk about the design, because when I look at the bottles of Floraïku, I instantly think about certain design objects that are very well thought out, because you have the cap, which is covered in lacquered canvas, right? Mm-hmm. And the cap always tells us about the story of the perfume. Then we have the haiku written on the back of the bottle. So how did you approach the design of the bottle itself? And why was it so important for you for it to stand out, not only in the boutique where we have so many different other brands, but for it to stand out at home, maybe on your own, I don't know, toiletry table?
Well, yes, that was a really important point for us, was how do we express all the detail? We spoke earlier about appreciating the detail of Japanese and Asian culture. And when we went to look at how we would create the bottle and how we'd encompass everything about the brand, we wanted to have a revealing, an unpacking. And so if I take how Floraïku arrives, here's a Floraïku box. And when you open the box, it comes in an outer box. You open it, you have a surprise. So first of all, you have the yokai, the Japanese different figures of animals that each has a story, and then their special powers. Secondly, you open up here, and then you see inside where you actually have 2 in 1. You have a 10 ml, which I can ask you to hold maybe for 1 second. You have the fragrance, which comes like this inside, and this comes off. And this goes in here, and then you have this that goes on top. So you want to hold it there, you've got your travel case to take in your handbag with you, and then you have a lid to go in your perfume when you leave it at home in your bathroom. So within the box, you always get 2 in 1. And our idea was saying, this is how perfume should be. It should be precious. It should be something that comes in a beautiful box, in an indigo denim bento box. And yet you end up with functional, with 2 products. And at the beginning, when you see it, you don't realize it. And that's where the surprise comes in, because always these detailed surprise. It's like nowadays you can buy a pair of jeans, and inside, when you're putting them on, they can have a little note message sewn in the inside. Have you seen that in your clothes? And it's always a surprise. Every time you put them on, it makes you smile. And so with these sort of details of having your perfume at home, having your haiku behind, and then having your travel spray, you have to be very strong to open that.
Yeah, but like maybe I am doing it wrong.
No,
is it possible to refill it? Like,
yes.
Change?
And then it's refillable, so you always have that
perfect.
with you. And that's a lovely object to have. And it's very heavy as well. It's very good arm in your handbag.
Yeah. Well, because we need, Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Okay, but what inspired the certain design details? Let's start with maybe with the lacquered canvas. Did you see it somewhere else?
With the lacquer, we looked at different things. We looked at the white lacquer for the teas. We thought it showed the tea, the pureness of the teas. We wanted the indigo blue lacquer, came from the denim, from the indigo color of denim, which we loved. And then the black from the incense, from the wood. So that was the first 3 colors we had with the brand. And from there, we took the packaging in the indigo blue with the gold on that. And from here, we were able to say, okay, how do we create this surprise even further? We wanted this look. If you look in a lot of art, that's something that stops you. By having the cap on top, it was very unusual, and people stopped. And by having the artist's impression of the fragrance in an image on top, it also stopped you in your tracks. So people always wanted to stop and look and see, what is this? They didn't understand it. And then when they saw it in its whole packaging, the whole thing together, they say, wow, this is something different. And our job is to bring something different and to bring some excitement and to bring some maybe audacity to what we do. And that's what we've wanted to do by sharing what we love. And that was kind of like an unwrapping and gifting. And when you go in the Asian culture, it's very important, the unwrapping, the gifting, the shopping bag, the wrapping around everything else. You take your time, and it's a pleasure of undressing the product, or undressing, until you get to the product itself.
And who does the illustrations for the caps?
Clara, at the very beginning, she sketches a few little things she wants, but now we've got a team internally inside. We've got a wonderful illustrator and designer who works on the haiku as a starting point, and then works from the haiku to the illustration.
Okay. And then we have some more creations here, and I want to talk about the one that was actually just in your arms, and it's called In Your Lips, another bestseller of yours. And I know that in Eastern cultures, love is usually expressed in an incredibly poetic and humble way even. And this fragrance actually evokes the lightness of first love through very beautiful notes of flowers. You have roses, you have jasmines, you have other kind of florals in this fragrance. And maybe you could tell me, what kind of love story does this fragrance tell? So if you look at the beginning of this, you can interpret it many ways. And I think everyone is open to interpret the haiku in their way. So it means, it starts off this haiku, it goes, on stage, the full moon and your lips. So on stage, the full moon and your lips. So what sort of stage is that? Is it a stage where you're sitting? The full moon gives you something that's quite romantic, and your lips. How is the light? How is that? So I can have my interpretation, you will have your interpretation, everyone can interpret it, but that was Clara wanted to encapsulate in this fragrance was, and that's why you've the dark interpretation on the pack of the lips. So on stage, the full moon and your lips. Mm-hmm. And on what kind of date would you wear this fragrance?
I really think that this fragrance, on any one occasion, I think this fragrance would be great for, I think, your first date with someone. I think it's amazing because that's when you're going to really have so much anticipation and so much excitement on the first date. And it's on stage. You are like if you're on stage, you know, you are presenting yourself on stage. It's going to be like a full moon. It's once off time. And then your lips. People are going to be watching you as you're speaking on your lips, and it is a fragrance that's going to talk about your personality and only be part of the overall impression you give someone is going to be part of your fragrance, but a very important one.
John, but if you're married for 21 years, that could bring you memory of your first date.
Exactly, exactly.
So the first date, every time we have a date with your person.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's one thing we say about fragrance, and my interpretation of fragrance is there's no rules. I think that any time you can evoke or bring back a special moment and think of it again, that's great. Take it. You know, take the good moments and remember them and relive them. And I think these are all really important things that fragrance do. Fragrance is there to help us express our emotions and bring them out and let them free. You know, they've been used for so long by religions, by events, and now we can do it ourselves. We've got multiple fragrances where we can really express how we feel or how we want to feel. Happy, sad, excited, in love, however it is. I think it's wonderful to have that ability through such a unique concept as fragrance.
Maybe we can try this one.
Yes.
Is it possible to mix, do you mix the fragrance? Because you said there is no rules, there are no rules. And I also loved your idea, you know, once you said, because I also read your interviews, and once you said that if you would look how other people are doing things, you're gonna be paralyzed. And I think with this collection and with this, the whole idea of the surprise and that the people will get not only emotion because they smell good or that they like the perfume, but the whole experience. So I think this is something that, you know, sets the level up. So
That's exactly what you said is what we wanted to do. The idea of Floraïku was to slow down the process. I think a lot of fragrance today is like speed dating. You walk into a store, they put a blotter in front of your nose and tell you it's new, it's this is a star that's wearing it, you should wear it, and you'll be as sexy as that star. And we were like the complete opposite. Come in, sit down. When you come into a Floraïku store, we give you a hot towel to clean your hands so you can smell perfect. We give you a tea, we give you a biscuit, we sit you down, and we want to say, look, the only thing we ask you is give us 10 to 15 minutes of your time and let us explain what we love. And then if you love it, well and good. If you don't, at least you'll have learned something. And that's, I think, which is wonderful in a product, is to be able to share your passion, share your learning, and hopefully other people will like it as well. And so far, so good.
I have a question. So for me, when I look at the bottle, there's like a lot of art in it, of course. And when I smell it and when I read it, everything connects, you know? So I wanted to ask you, is it like all the perfumes are like very beautiful and all the haikus are very beautiful. So when you told about all the process that your team is now creating, you gave them a lot of freedom, because you said that before it was like 3 pages of briefs. Now it's like 3 sentences. So when you created, for example, the latest scent, you were also like thinking about only like 3 words or like 3 sentences. Is it like all the time it's the same? So you just like give like basically the 3 sentences and then the rest happens, or? It all depends on the nose. I think now that the brand has been established, I think that it's maybe easier for the nose to work, because we know what a Floraïku perfume is. And they like to think that they will know how it fits in and how it starts and how it should evolve and the fact that it should hit you straight away. So it's kind of like when a brand has been formed, and Floraïku is it's 9 years old. So it's like a 9-year-old child to me. It still needs a lot of guidance. You know, soon it's 12, it's going to walk to school by itself and do things by itself, but it still needs a lot of guidance. So I think in a few years' time, it'll be easier to go further in that construction. But today, it fits in because we're guiding it, we're watching it, we're making sure, and we're constantly talking with the noses to ensure that they bring the fragrance. And you know, it doesn't work all the time. We've got hundreds of fragrances that never worked. They're still in a drawer somewhere. It hasn't worked out because it hasn't fitted together.
I have a question. So, first one, that it hit it as before you, like after you spray and Deimantė gave it to me, I already smelled it. How you decide, like, when is the final version that, okay, we're gonna go with this? Is this like...
There's a whole process. And so you roughly get the juice, you think you're getting there. It's kind of, I think you're getting dressed and you get your clothes on, you know it's looking right. What are the final touches? But with perfume, it's a little more complicated because you want to make it long lasting. You want to make it impactful. But the ingredients have different effects in each other. So you might have a fragrance, you might say it's at 25 degrees in concert, and you put it up to 27 and it's less effective, it's less strong, it's less long-lasting, because one ingredient takes over another. So it's all about, I would say, knowledge, expertise, and trial and error. And then at some stage, you've got to have a creative direction that says, stop, this is it.
Who says the final word? Clara. Yeah.
So that's in it. And Clara will only bring out a perfume if she can wear it in her skin. So, you know, for years, I thought it was so romantic every morning, Clara reaching over to give me a kiss in the morning. She wasn't. She was reaching over to give me her hand. Smell that. How does it smell the next morning? Has it last for 12 years? And here I was thinking that I had this wonderful marriage where every morning reaching over, giving me a kiss. And it was like, please smell this. Tell me how it is after 12 hours. You know? So that's life when you're living and working together. What can I say?
And let's maybe talk about the fragrance itself. It's called On Your Lips. And as we stated before, it's about love and the beauty of first love. So can you tell me a bit more about the composition of this fragrance? Because it's very floral, very, very floral.
Well, it's got kind of like a Turkish rose coming through it. Okay, and it's got this lovely jujuberry as well with it. And I think it's got this this way of bringing to you, is kind of like a bit candied at the beginning. So you have a feeling of a little bit like a lipstick at the very beginning, but then you get it's not, because it's got this depth behind and it's really long lasting. So I think it's something that is, it's an invitation. I think it invites you to wear it, and it invites you to smell, and invites you to see how it evolves. So everyone that has tried this perfume at the beginning, they try it on. We always say, try it in your skin first and come back. And we've got 95% of people come back within an hour saying, I really love this. Because it has that little mix that brings something that's slightly different, and it's quite unusual with that fruit and that flower being mixed in that way. And then it's long lasting and it's fun.
I definitely think that I would wear this on a date just to like get a glass of wine or something like that. Especially like on a rainy spring evening, something like that. What kind of date would you wear it on?
For a date? I think I would wear, as always, like big men's jacket with the shoulders. I love it. And maybe some red lips and then this.
I would go maybe to a movie theater, like to see a good movie, or maybe just for a walk, you know, just, for me it's like...
Oh, sorry, we were talking not about the outfit. I
I was talking about...
No, I said, what kind of date would you go on? Okay. I was like, what you would like to wear on your date?
For me, it's sweet, and I think if I would wear it, that man would probably remember me very, very much. Yeah.
Sorry, it was so captivated.
Yeah, but
it does come with a disclaimer. We're not responsible for what happens on your date when you wear this perfume. But otherwise, that'd be too much of a risk for us. Yeah. So we do a disclaimer in all of our fragrances.
Yeah. And do you ever try some floral fragrances on yourself?
Yes, I love floral fragrances.
Really?
I really do. I love, because for me, it's the idea of masculinity or femininity is very outdated. I think you wear your fragrance. So if it's like, put it this way, you come back from the hairdresser and you come home or you come into the office, you go, do you like my hair? You don't sound convinced. What does someone answer you? They think you're not convinced. You walk back into the office, you're looking fantastic, and you got a new haircut. Everyone's going to say, I love that in you. Why? Because you're wearing it, you're apparently it's part of you. And the people who like you will like the fragrance on you. And that's why I always say, if you like a fragrance, the first person to like it is yourself. Like the fragrance, wear it, and the people that like you will like it on you because it becomes part of you. It's who you are. And I think rose on men have always been wearing jasmine, have been wearing rose for years. There was never a problem with that, but it's in, you could say, Western culture, that people didn't, men don't wear rose, men don't wear these things, but I think it's absolutely fantastic to express yourself with any sort of fragrance. I love wearing jasmine. I think it's fantastic. I love wearing some rose fragrances. You can mix, match, do whatever you want, but your masculinity or your femininity or how you portray yourself is not just a fragrance, it's the whole picture together of who you are.
Do you have your favorite?
Do I have my favorite? I think at the moment, my favorite, at the moment within one of my favorites, I can say within Floraïku, is Sand and Skin. Because it brings me back to so many wonderful times on the beach, playing, laughing, and sort of the after beach evenings. When it just reminds me of sort of like coconuts and palm trees. I think we do. We might have it here.
So, okay, tell us a bit more, maybe the backstory of your fragrance. What story does it tell us? How did you compose it? And what should we feel when we try it?
So I think, again, everything starts from the haiku. So back from a swim, they meet again, sand and skin. So back from a swim, they meet again, sand and skin. So how do you interpret that? You get running out of the water, you get back to your towel on the beach or anything, and you got a bit of sand on you. That feeling of, I hate having sand on me after the swim of that. But yet, it brings back the memory of those wonderful times being there in that warm weather, having that fun, the music, the ambience, everything else. So I think it's a way of being able to capture a very, sharp moment that brings back a memory to you about a very nice holiday or a very nice time. So that's what Clara wanted to capture. So back from a swim, they meet again, sand and skin. And this fragrance, it's all about holiday. It's all about dream. It's all about trying to bring everything together. I find it very, very romantic in its way. Actually, this fragrance, I've got a 15-year-old daughter, and this fragrance, her and her friends This is their go-to fragrance.
No, because it's fun. Like it probably brings to the fun.
But I think it's also because it's quite an unusual vanilla as well. It's coming through in it. So it brings something back, and yet we've got people wearing this from 15 to whatever age, just enduring this perfume.
What else do we feel in it?
You've got a slight benzoid in it as well, giving it that sort of nice, sort of calming, warming, sort of woody feel coming through.
It's very soothing.
You know, it's soothing, and on your skin, it's got a completely, you've got to leave it in your skin, because we always say in a perfume, when you work with it, you've got to dry down. You know, the first part you say is the head notes coming out, and you got the body and the base. So I always say, let it dry down your skin, see how it is, and come back. And I always like to say when I meet someone who's trying a perfume, say, try it on your right hand. Go away, have a coffee somewhere, and you're going to be smelling it all the time and see how it is, and see if you love it. Tip. You know, how does it go with you, how it is? And then go and then try the second favorite in your left hand, and then go out and try both and come back and have them on a warm point somewhere where you can really feel them developing and come back.
But John, you don't do this.
No. But then there's no rules. I never do. I think it's quite funny seeing the movies, people doing that, and a bit here and a bit here and everything. So, you know, Floraïku, one thing about the brand is that we developed this whole concept of shadowing with the brand as well. So talk about where you wear your perfumes. You can wear one perfume here and one perfume here. So if you put your arms out towards me, okay? If you're from here to here, you're wearing two perfumes, I will only smell one. But if I come inside this distance, I'm in your intimate zone. Yeah. And then I can say, what's happening? You're maybe wearing two. Mm-hmm. And then it's intriguing. So often you can wear one perfume top of your body, one perfume bottom of your body. People that are this distance from you will only smell one. But those who get closer to you can smell there's something else going on. And that's why you can have a perfume where it's not layering, it's wearing two different perfumes. Mm-hmm. You probably come back from trying perfumes in a store, and someone said, I love your perfume. You said, what do you mean you love your perfume? I'm wearing two different perfumes. Yeah, of course, they can only smell one when they're there. If they get closer, they can smell two. So there's a lot of fun and games in perfume, how you wear it and what way you want to wear it. So we've developed shadowing with Floraïku because everything in life is about shadows. And the other side of the fragrance, so we've got a light shadow, which brings out the fun side of you. Mm-hmm. And when you pick your perfume, you find your perfume called Sand and Skin. And then you've got your light shadow, which you wear, which brings out the child or the fun part of you. Your dark shadow brings out the power. So you've got your fragrance, and then you've got this concept of me, myself, and I, the three people that are within me every day. I go home, me who I am with my friends, and an I who I am in work. We are that every day. We do it every day without noticing it. But then with your fragrance, you can help yourself click into those modes. And that's what's so nice about fragrance. You can have that, my perfume, my light shadow, my perfume, my dark shadow, and those help you to triggers. Fragrance has such an effect on our emotions. And, you know, I've got a fragrance that I can wear in the morning. It's like having a double espresso. It gives me that effect of getting together without having the caffeine. So you can have fragrance that really trigger you in any way. So that's why we love fragrance. We love playing with fragrances. We love having a fragrance wardrobe. And I think Floraïku invites you to have this shadowing part because it's very important.
But how does it work in this collection especially? Well,
in this collection, I haven't got the two here, but you've got a light shadow fragrance and a dark shadow fragrance. They're two separate fragrances that can be worn by themselves. So you would actually, if you were trying that, you try your light shadow with Sand and Skin, and you see how it would be like this. And then, you know, smelling them like this and this would be in your intimate zone, but smelling them like this would be at arm's distance, what someone smells. And then you do the same thing with your dark shadow. So you can have your perfume, and then you've got like a really strong version that highlights your perfume, and then you've got another perfume that kind of brings it down and makes it more playful.
But how do you make them compatible? Is it about
from the very beginning?
Yes, that work well?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so give us an example.
So, for example, in the dark shadow, you've got this wonderful vetiver that gives it an energy and a power. Okay, and that brings out the light shadow. We've got a very light flower that brings out a lighter part of you, and it triggers that coming each time. So that's how we work, and we work that. These light and dark shadows work with every fragrance in the collection, so you can have your shadowing. So when you buy a fragrance, you can buy the light shadow and the dark shadow, and then you can have a little kit with the three of them together. So you can always, I'm going home. You know, I've got a big meeting, whatever it is, and you can work, and it works really well.
Do you do it for yourself?
I do it a lot of the time. I wear it a lot because I often work with the shadowing with many fragrances as well. but it's not mixing, it's side by side.
So one fragrance on one hand, another on another hand.
One here and one here. And only those who are within that distance, your intimate zone, know you're wearing two.
Okay, if we will put the third one.
There's no rules.
There's no rules.
Well, if you put the third one, normally, if it's going to be for another event, the third one, because it's stronger, it's going to overpower the lightest one. And so you're going to have that with it as well, you know. And again, it's for you to give you, it's for yourself that I'm wearing this, I've got my body armor on, I've got the strength, I'm feeling this way. And it helps you gear up. Like you probably have certain things in life that you do before you go to certain meetings, you say something yourself, or before exams and school, whatever it was, you've got things that trigger your emotions and mentally prepare you. And a fragrance can very easily and very simply prepare you for something like that.
I want to talk to you about ingredients, actually, because we have been mentioning certain ingredients in certain perfumes, how they evoke certain feelings. And when we think about Japan, there are certain groups of fragrant ingredients that we think about. We think of incense, we think of teas, we think of spices. Have you ever had any challenges while composing a perfume where you wanted to get a very, very specific scent, but it was very, very hard to get it into a perfume?
Well, there are quite a few. So, for example, if we're looking at the fragrance that's just come out recently, called Flying South, using hibiscus. And a hibiscus flower, the scent doesn't stay. It's you should try and get it. So you've got to take a headspace of it, or you've got to capture what it would be like.
What is headspace? I personally know what it is, but for everyone at home, maybe they're not knowledgeable enough.
The idea today is that if you're going to work with products, you want to have a sustainable, you want to make sure you're using an ingredient that can be harvested and is good for the environment, and you're not over-harvesting something. So certain flowers that don't give a fragrance, or they have it only for a certain moment, you can capture it, and then you can capture what that fragrance is with like the headspace, like a machine, and then you can try and build back and work back to find the different ingredients that can make that, to interpret that.
Like the chemical makeup
exactly,
of the scent.
Of that. So it's like capturing the headspace of the fragrance. It's like when you're making a leather fragrance, you know, you make an accord of different notes together that feels like leather. And then you make the fragrance around it. Here you capture the headspace of the hibiscus, or sometimes we use what's called upcycling. We will take a fragrance that comes from another industry, like we take, there's an ingredient we take from the paper industry. And when they're manufacturing paper with the wood, there's a certain preference, we capture that ingredient and we use it. So it's upcycled from other industries. We're always trying to find new ways that are sustainable, that are intelligent, that are using byproducts, and also natural, and mix the best of man-made and natural together, to be in line with the generation we're in, to make sure that we're not depleting any natural resources, and we're making sure that things are the best possible quality. So with that headspace with the hibiscus, it really helped us to bring that fragrant hibiscus, fresh hibiscus together and make it something very unique.
Maybe you could try it.
Yes, we'd love to.
So this is the newest one,
yes,
right?
It's the newest. And it's called Flying South.
Flying South.
Because Flying South for us is something wonderful. The only issue I had about Flying South was when I was in Asia, they said, what do you mean Flying South? Where are we going to go? To Australia? You know, so Flying South of where? So for us living in the northern countries, Flying South, it's a frame of mind. You know?
Exactly.
I'm going towards the sun. I'm going on holiday. I'm flying south. So when you look at Flying South, it's Clara says here, how far dreaming flying south? How far dreaming flying south? That was our start point for this fragrance. So, and when you look at it, you've got the hibiscus on the packaging. Looking at that, you've got the colors, the summertime. You know, that could be.
But this is so amazing that you can actually put this in your like bag and travel around, because usually that's the problem with your favorite fragrance,
Exactly.
no? That this is in, you know, in the bigger bottle, and then like what to do. So this is the great solution.
Yeah,
Bravo.
You never want to leave it at the airport.
Yeah. No.
And they can't. It's only a 10 ml, that one, so they can't.
Go.
So you can see
So
here.
hibiscus, right?
Yes.
It does have that sourness that hibiscus tea has, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So you have that, and then you've got this wonderful melon as well, going through, giving it that summertime.
Do you ever think about certain seasons when you're creating fragrances? Like what's the summer fragrance, the winter fragrance?
Well, we do, but working all around the world, seasons are very much, you could say, Western things. In Asia, they have 2 seasons. In some countries, they don't have seasons. So we do. We always work with what we love. And having something that evokes summer after a long winter is amazing. Having something that evokes the idea of summer, even though you can wear it in December if you want to. But for us, seasons are very important because it's all about rebirth, relife, renewing things, seeing things again, flowers coming out, the beauty of nature. I think when you take yourself away from nature for too long, you kind of stop living a little bit. I don't know if you feel that when you're in a city for a while, or you've been doing something, you've been stuck studying for exams or working so hard, and you haven't looked or opened your eyes to see outside. And then suddenly you see this beautiful tree and blossom or cherry blossom you're talking about earlier on, and you see something, it gives you that kind of feeling. We need to be close with nature. So this you have the Makua melon, it's an Asian melon. You have the hibiscus, and then you have I think a white musk as well.
I also smell
What do you imagine when you
ice
smell
cream.
this? Really?
Yeah, somehow. I don't know. Maybe it's the body or I don't know. As you said, the layers, but somehow I want to eat ice cream while I'm flying to south.
Exactly. That was nice. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
That idea of wanting to eat ice cream, I think going and wanting to have a great ice cream is fantastic.
Okay, Almantė, what do you imagine when you smell
For
this
me,
one?
it's like a pool in like sunset, and I'm somewhere where it's like super hot and it's like super exotic. I don't know. It's for me.
Whoa, big romantic coming out there.
Yes, I'm super sentimental, so I already see the picture where I was, and yeah, this is what I see. I love the colors of this cup. It's very beautiful and very bright as this scent.
What's your first idea when you try this?
When I tried this perfume at first, it brought back memories to me of going to Spain when I first met my wife. She's of Spanish origin. We used to go to Spain a lot. And it was always about, she's Latino. She loves getting out of a plane, loves getting out of the hot. You get out to a country and you get out of the plane first time and some people say, oh, it's overwhelming. She loves that feeling of like, wow, the heat. Did I forget anything about the transpiration or she just loves getting out of a plane and you walk out and suddenly, wow, that hit. And so she loves that because it means summertime. It means a break with everything else. And that kind of reminds me of that feeling that she always has getting out of a plane, we're going somewhere, and that instant heat, and she's like, big smile, it's summertime, heat's on, it's.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Smells really beautiful. And then I know that we have another one called Gong. And when I read about the story of this perfume, there was like a very certain delicacy mentioned, and it's called the dorayaki, which is like a small cupcake, right? Like a very, very Japanese delicacy. And maybe we can try it as well, because I know that it's one of the sweeter ones and also great for summer. But I wanted to ask about your own personal memories from visiting Japan countless times, as you already said. So whenever you go to Japan, you probably try a lot of local food. You go to different places in the country. You probably see lots of different sceneries. Maybe you could tell us some stories about how the certain fragrances came to be. For example, the Gong one. Where did you try the dorayaki? What were the circumstances of you trying this kind of delicacy?
Well, let's run into the Gong here. And if you look at Gong, smiles in the air, floating thoughts, Gong. Smiles in the air, floating thoughts, Gong. So smiles in the air, floating thoughts, Gong. So behind this story about Gong, so a gong, the gong is the big metal thing, bang, when you come into something, a gong that stops you. Also, the samurai sword, the shield was used as a gong, the shield, the shield from the samurai. And this story was about a samurai who got injured, and he ended up in this village, and the villagers helped him get back to his strength, and he gave them his shield as a token of appreciation for helping him. And they in the village didn't know what to do with the shield. So they used it as a big frying pan to make the first dorayakis. And the dorayaki is like a pancake with the red beans inside, And so that's kind of how this came up. So everything fitted together with the gong, using, you know, a shield as a gong, dorayakis, and what my really impactful memories of Japan were visiting Naoshima. Naoshima is in the South Seto Sea, and it's an island, an art island. And in this island, you have all contemporary art installations. You've got this wonderful, wonderful gallery and wonderful art piece. You've got Walter de Mario, these big marble balls. You've got the architect who made the whole museum. There's one source of light coming into the middle, and everything takes. I remember walking up. The most frightening experience of my life is walking up a stairway that were made out of giant ice cubes, out of glass. But you thought you were going to slip. You actually slipped. Your legs were like wobbling because you looked like giant ice cubes. You were walking up the stairs, but it wasn't. It was glass. It looked like. But the imagination, what the artists had done to give you the sensation of you were going to fall over. I nearly did slip because it wasn't slippy at all, but your mind was telling you, you're going to fall on this stairway made of giant ice cubes that was going, and it was just made out of glass. So I think all of these things that were done to such perfection and things that really stopped you in your tracks and made you think and made you experience things and never forgetting moments. I think that's what I've, and from that, and also when you're in Tokyo, just with the thousands of people, the different types of fashion, the youthful people going out, the young dyeing their hair, the extremes. People seem to go to extremes. It's kind of like you've got a certain period of your life where you can go and let your hair down, and you've got to go do it. And then you've got to fit back into the routine of life again. And I always felt those extremes are done to such a scale. Pick up a fashion magazine in Japan. You look at a men's fashion, they will actually buy a suit and take it apart and show you how everything is made from the shoulder piece inside. It's not just showing you the look. It's saying, well, look, let's look at the look. Now let's open up how was it made and go to every detail, the bone, the buttons, the thread, every part of the fabric, how it was done. So it's kind of like, wow, don't just half do it 150%.
Mm-hmm. And for example, whenever you go to Japan, do you ever go with like a very specific need to come back with a story for a perfume?
No.
Or does it just happen naturally?
It happens naturally. The last time I was in Japan, I took my daughter, who's 15, who loves Asian culture and loves Japan. And I said to her, you've got to come to every single meeting I'm coming to. And she joined me, and she was in the stores, and she was checking out all the Japanese beauty brands, the Japanese fashion brands, different looks. She had a list of shopping from all of her girlfriends. What does that mean? She's 15 today, and she has got a knowledge about Japanese and Asian culture that when I was 15, I never had. I think due to the internet, due to this globalness we have, people really understand and appreciate other cultures through seeing mangas, through seeing films, through seeing movies, to the music, to the products. It's amazing what they know from maybe time spent on the screen. There's a good side of that, isn't there? So they really do know an awful lot. And that was really something which I didn't think that she would appreciate and know as much about the country as she did. Yet at the same time, she took me to a cafe, which was not a green tea, they're the matcha cafe, which had a floating river going around, and when your coffee came to it, stopped. They had a little motor on thing, it stopped in front of you in the little river, in the stream. So she wanted to go to this matcha club, having this matcha drink, but it stopped in front of you, yet it was a river going around the whole bar for everyone was sitting. So how did my daughter find out about this and want to take me in the middle of Tokyo? So that was great. And here it was, in the middle of nowhere, this little cafe with this river where when your drink stopped, the tray had a motor, it just like a hovercraft. It stopped in front of you on this little river going around the bar. You only find that in Japan. You'll only find these craziness. It's great.
So as our interview is going to end soon, I still have a couple of questions about your brand and especially your relationship with Japan. If you had to tell me what one ingredient is the most Japanese to you, what would you pick?
That's a very hard question. One of anything, it's very hard, I think. I probably would think of flowers, because I go back again, it sounds a little cliche, but the cherry blossom and the way flowers are dealt with, ikebana, the detail that goes into use of flowers and vegetation. Even you go back to a Japanese garden where there's no flowers, you use with stone and sand. I think there's a attention to detail and to looking to what you don't see in the first degree. So for example, we're looking at, an ikebana arrangement where you have, 3 different types of flowers. You can use many. It's all about the choice of the flowers, the vase, the balance between both. But the other item you don't see is that usually the ikebana is placed in a niche where there's a light on it, and you see the shadow of those flowers on the wall as well. So something like that is all these details. So I think the flower, because of its 3-dimension like that, I think, I could have said the teas. Yeah. There's so many beautiful teas, or incense. But I think you've said the one for me. I think the flower, probably because of it evokes more color. It evokes so much joy and amazement.
What I also find very interesting is that you said that Floraïku is a brand that is both Japanese and Parisian. That the Parisian part is about the craft of perfumery, the traditions of haute perfumery. And maybe you could tell me a little bit more about how did you find the Japanese perfumery traditions when you went there? Because when I think about how do Asian people usually use perfume, it's in a very subtle way. It has to be very light. It has to be almost like invisible. It's very hard to kind of catch it. But when I think about these perfumes, they do have a character. They do stand on their own. You can definitely feel them. So how do you combine the French side and the Japanese side in the fragrance itself?
Well, I think that we are a French fragrance house, and we make fragrances as a French fragrance house. I may not be the best qualified person to speak about Japanese fragrances or Japanese tastes in fragrances. However, what I do see today is in that the younger generations are becoming more and more connected throughout the world. So young boys in Japan or young girls in Japan, just like my daughter, all these, they all know what they're all wearing, and people are wearing is becoming more international in tastes, and we can see it's happening. Of course, there'll be certain traditional fragrances that may be more popular, but I think those have evolved a lot. I think maybe looking back 20 years ago, people said people didn't wear fragrances in Japan as much. It was only a very small amount of people. Mm-hmm. And I think it goes back to a lot of their traditions. But I think today the world is becoming more global. Fragrances is accepted as being part of your personality even more so. So I think for us, we're lucky that our fragrances are accepted all around the world, from people who are buying them and becoming fans. But I don't think I could tell you exactly what would be a Japanese fragrance, because I'm not qualified for that. But I do know that if you make something that has soul, that has integrity, and that you really believe in it, and it's made of good quality, you're bound to have fans from Japan and other countries in the world as well, because they demand that quality, they demand that thought process, they demand something that is of high quality and audacious.
And I want to end with a very big milestone that's coming up next year, if I'm not mistaken. Next year, Floraïku is celebrating its 10th birthday. It's already been 10 years. In your collection, you have more than 20 different fragrances. So many beautiful stories told, so many beautiful experiences written like poetry in fragrant notes. And I wanted to ask you, what are the most vivid memories of this decade for you? And how do you approach the next decade of the brand? Because as you see, the market is getting very oversaturated. People are interpreting so many different cultures. They're using so many new different ingredients, synthetic, natural, all kinds. So what do you remember from the last decade? What was very vivid for you? And how do you see the future of Floraïku?
I see, as I said, brands grow like people. It's 9 years old. I see really what Floraïku is going to look like when it's 21. Mm-hmm. I see when it looks like when it's 18. And I think that this brand touches an awful lot of people. and it evokes so much enthusiasm from our side, from Clara and I, and our team. So I think when you've got enthusiasm, you've got energy, and you've got that ambition behind, it will keep growing and growing. So how do we see the next year? Next year is our 10th anniversary. Next year, we will be launching a lot of surprises. We have a lot of surprises coming out next year. Unfortunately, I can't talk about them now, but hopefully this time next year we can catch up again, and I'll come back and I'll be able to show them to you. So next year's 2027 is going to be a huge year for Floraïku in terms of also our retail. Our first concept we started 10 years ago in retail and our different stores. So keep this space open. You're going to see new things coming out from next year onwards in 2027 from Floraïku. But I think the brand resonates with people that like design, like art, like poetry. And I think you're always going to get people who have that sort of affinity with finer things in life. So I always feel that as long as it keeps to its DNA as a brand, and it keeps seeing the world through its own glasses, hopefully, who knows, but hopefully its clients will continue to be really loyal and to be fans of the brand, and it will develop nicely.
And for the end, from your whole collection of 20 plus fragrances, if you had to pick one that represents the brand the best, what would that be?
Oh, wow. You're putting me on the spot here. One fragrance that represents the brand the best.
This is good because it's going to be honest answer.
One fragrance that represents the brand the best. I would say that I would tell you a different way. I think one fragrance that represents Clara and I behind the brand the best would be One Umbrella for Two.
Why?
Because it's like we've got one roof for the two of us. We've got one umbrella for the two of us. It's about, making sure that it was one of the first fragrances we did, that we keep that integrity throughout the whole brand, that we keep that same vision. We don't deviate from each other and what we want to do going forward with that. And I think if you look at the symbolic part of One Umbrella for Two, you've got two hands holding an umbrella, two hands holding a brand, two hands ensuring that the brand is safe underneath the umbrella. And I think that's our duty. It's what we love doing and what we'd like to do for the future, be to carry that umbrella for the brand for the next how many years, I do not know.
Well, so you've been married for 21 years, and let's hope that the brand stays for so many more, and that you and Clara stay together for so many more. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. And I'd like to remind everyone that today we had the founder of Floraïku and Memo Paris, Johnu Molloy, and I was a host, Deimantė Bulbenkaitė, and we also had Simona Burbaitė and Almantė Pociūtė with me. And thank you so much to Crème de la Crème for this opportunity, and be sure to try the Floraïku fragrances in all of these stores. See you soon.
Thank you very much. Bye. Thank you.